Imagine standing in a vast, empty desert, watching as the first rocket powered by the dreams of humanity hurtles into the sky. Now consider what was left behind: scorched earth, toxic fumes, and a trail of destruction that would echo for decades. The pursuit of space is often glorified, but the hidden cost, both environmental and ethical, has been staggering. From the moment early humans learned to manipulate fire, we've sought ways to propel ourselves further, faster, and higher. In ancient China, black powder rockets, created to launch fireworks, became weapons of war. As these early rockets evolved, the line between progress and destruction blurred. Yet no point in history marks a more profound shift than the 20th century, the moment when rocketry became a true symbol of human ambition and devastation. The birth of modern rocketry is closely tied to Wernher von Braun, a figure hailed as a pioneer of space exploration. But beneath this facade lies a much darker legacy. During World War II, von Braun was the architect behind Nazi Germany's V-2 rockets. These rockets were not launched in the name of discovery, but as instruments of terror, raining down destruction on London and Antwerp, leaving behind thousands of civilian casualties. The irony, the very rockets designed to conquer the skies were rooted in the depths of destruction on Earth. A legacy of destruction. The V-2 rocket, often hailed as the precursor to modern space travel, was fueled by ambition and malevolence. Von Braun, and many like him, were not just engineers, they were part of a darker, more nefarious agenda. While their scientific achievements were groundbreaking, the price was paid by innocent civilians and forced laborers who built these rockets under brutal conditions. In the years after the war, von Braun's past was brushed aside as he was recruited by the United States under Operation Paperclip. His knowledge became invaluable for the U.S. space program, leading to the development of NASA and the Apollo missions. But the question remains, at what cost? The development of rocketry has always come hand in hand with the pursuit of power, be it military or economic. Von Braun's V-2 rockets consumed over 30 tons of fuel per launch, using ethanol and liquid oxygen as propellants. Compare that to today's rockets like SpaceX's Falcon 9, which burns more than 300 tons of RP-1, a refined form of kerosene, and liquid oxygen per flight. The environmental impact is enormous. Each launch releases hundreds of tons of CO2 into the atmosphere, a carbon footprint that rivals thousands of cars running continuously for days. The rocket fuel crisis. How much is too much? The startling reality is that the fuel consumption of modern rockets is disproportionately high compared to everyday necessities. For example, a typical car driven for a year burns about 500 gallons of gasoline. A single Falcon 9 launch, by contrast, burns over 400,000 gallons of fuel. To put that into perspective, the fuel used in one rocket launch could power thousands of cars for an entire year. But that's just the beginning. A Boeing 747 burns roughly 1 gallon of fuel per second during flight. Now imagine this. SpaceX's Starship prototype consumes over 10 tons of liquid methane per second at full throttle. That's nearly the equivalent of 12,000 gallons of gasoline per second. The absurdity of it all is that while the world struggles to reduce emissions from cars, trucks, and industrial machines, rockets continue to burn vast amounts of fuel, relatively unchecked. The environmental cost doesn't stop with the fuel. There's e-waste generated from the electronics used in space exploration, satellites that become space debris, and toxic rocket components left in the environment. Add to that the microwave signals from satellites and transmitters, which some studies suggest could be having negative effects on wildlife, particularly birds and insects. The manufacturing process of rockets is another significant contributor to environmental degradation. The production of rocket engines, like those used in SpaceX's Starship, involves a complex process that generates considerable water and air pollution, which often ends up in landfills or local water bodies. Additionally, the extraction and refinement of materials used in rockets, such as aluminum and rare earth metals, result in considerable environmental damage. These processes not only lead to habitat destruction, but also create pollution through the release of hazardous chemicals and particulate matter. As we venture deeper into the 21st century, we're often sold the idea that space is the new frontier, a solution to many of Earth's problems. But there's a darker side to this narrative. The companies at the forefront of this movement, SpaceX, Blue Origin, and others, are not just advancing science, they're advancing power structures that control resources, both on Earth and in space. The military implications are staggering, with satellites and rockets increasingly used for surveillance, communication, and tactical advantages in warfare. What's even more troubling is the eerie connection between the pioneers of space travel and occult practices. Jack Parsons, a co-founder of Jet Propulsion Laboratory JPL and an early rocket engineer, was not only a brilliant scientist but also a devoted follower of Aleister Crowley, an infamous occultist. Parsons was deeply involved in the occult and performed rituals intended to harness supernatural powers to aid in his rocket experiments. The line between science and mysticism was blurred, and it's no coincidence that the push for technological advancement is often tied to darker forces. Von Braun himself, though not openly an occultist, was deeply involved with Nazi ideologies, which included occult rituals and pagan beliefs. Many of these pioneers believed they were not only mastering science, but unlocking powers far beyond the physical world. This connection between technological advancement and spiritual darkness is more than just a coincidence. It reveals the true motives behind much of modern space exploration. The cost we can't ignore. Every launch, every rocket, every satellite sent into space leaves behind a trail of environmental and ethical destruction. While we debate reducing car emissions and regulating industrial pollution, rockets continue to burn through vast quantities of fuel. The hypocrisy is clear. While the public is urged to cut back, the elite burn through more fuel in one launch than thousands of cars could in a year. What's worse is that much of this fuel is wasted in ventures that offer little benefit to the average person. Colonizing Mars, mining asteroids, and other space dreams are fantasies pushed by the powerful to justify their continued exploitation of Earth. These endeavors drain our resources, fuel the military-industrial complex, and create mountains of e-waste. Meanwhile, the Earth suffers as our atmosphere is pumped full of carbon emissions, toxic chemicals pollute our oceans, and wildlife struggles to survive the onslaught of microwave signals and debris falling from space. When we dig deep into the history of rocketry, we find unsettling connections to darker forces, occult practices, military agendas, and the pursuit of power at any cost. The push to explore space has always been more about control than discovery. The elite, with their hands on the reins of technology, are not looking to save humanity. They are looking to preserve their own power. And in their quest for dominance, they are leading us toward environmental catastrophe. We must wake up to this reality. The true threat to our future isn't the carbon footprint of the average person. It's the unchecked power of those who push for more fuel, more rockets, and more destruction, all in the name of progress. If we don't take a stand, if we don't hold these powers accountable, we risk losing not only our planet, but our future as a species. The first step is recognizing the truth. The race to space is a race to destruction, and the fuel burning beneath the stars is the same fuel that will one day ignite our downfall.